Have you ever wondered why the smartest people you know seem to drift away from big social scenes? Not because they're arrogant, not because they think they're better than everyone else, but because, somehow, social life just doesn't seem to fit. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've started to notice you feel more drained after social events than energized. You start asking, is there something wrong with me? The short answer, no. In fact, what you're feeling might be a quiet sign of intelligence. Let's start by being honest. Society tends to equate being social with being successful. You're supposed to have a packed calendar, go to parties, join group chats, post on social media, and always be on. There's this underlying assumption: if you're alone, you must be lonely. But for many intelligent or deep-thinking people, that simply isn't true. Intelligent people often feel out of sync with that rhythm, not because they don't value connection, but because they value depth. They don't crave endless interaction. They crave meaning. A 5-minute real conversation matters more than 5 hours of surface-level chatter. There's even research to back this up. A 2016 study from the British Journal of Psychology found that people with higher IQs experience less satisfaction from frequent socialization. In fact, too much social interaction can actually lower their overall life satisfaction. That's not about being shy or socially anxious, it's about how their brains are wired. High intelligence often comes with high self-awareness. It makes you more sensitive to noise, to distraction, to shallowness. When you're constantly analyzing the world, small talk can feel like static. Parties feel like background noise when your mind is tuned into bigger questions. And it's not about thinking you're above anyone. It's about feeling exhausted by what's expected of you. Socially, the pressure to be present, to perform, to conform, it all starts to feel like a role you're forced to play. And intelligent people often grow tired of playing roles that don't align with who they are. This isn't a modern phenomenon either. Look at some of history's most brilliant minds: Nikola Tesla, Emily Dickinson, Isaac Newton, Franz Kafka. Their lives were often marked by long periods of solitude. Some were even ridiculed for it, but they weren't trying to escape the world. They were trying to understand it in ways that required quiet. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, so being smart makes you less social. Then what? What am I supposed to do with that? The goal here isn't to encourage isolation. It's to understand it and maybe even respect it. Because when you truly understand why you're not drawn to certain social settings, you stop blaming yourself. You stop trying to fit in by shrinking who you are. Imagine your mind as a high-powered engine. It's constantly running calculations, asking questions, exploring patterns. That engine burns a lot of fuel. When you step into a loud, chaotic environment, a group dinner, a club, even a work meeting with too much chatter, it's like trying to race a Formula One car on a dirt road. You'll go somewhere, sure, but you're not built for it. Let me give you a real metaphor I once heard from a professor during a psychology seminar. He said, some people are radios, tuned to every station, hearing a little bit of everything. Others are telescopes, quiet, still and focused, trying to see something far beyond the surface. That metaphor stuck with me because the world often rewards the radios. They're entertaining, engaging, everywhere at once. But the telescopes, they're the ones who change things. They discover things no one else sees because they're willing to stand still. Here's the paradox. Intelligent people do want connection. We all do. But the type of connection they crave isn't found in crowds. It's found in conversation that has weight, in shared silence that isn't awkward, in ideas that challenge and stretch the mind. That kind of connection is rare, and to find it, you often have to walk alone for a while. But solitude isn't a punishment, it's a space, and what you do in that space, What you build, how you grow, what you discover, that's where meaning lives. So what do you do when your mind thrives in solitude, but the world keeps telling you that you need to get out more? First, you recognize this truth. Solitude and isolation are not the same thing. Solitude is chosen. Isolation is imposed. One is empowering, the other is suffocating. If you're someone who finds peace, energy, or clarity in being alone, that's not a flaw, it's a feature. But like any feature, it needs to be used wisely. Let me give you 3 takeaways. Practical, grounded steps. Redefine connection on your terms. Just because you don't enjoy group hangouts or parties doesn't mean you're not social. You might just thrive in one-on-one conversations, or through writing, reading, shared projects, even walking in silence with someone. Intelligent people often connect in unconventional ways. That's okay. What matters is that it's real, not performative. Build a small circle with deep roots. You don't need many people. You just need the right ones. People who understand that silence doesn't mean distance. People who won't push you to be someone you're not. Seek depth over width. One solid, nourishing friendship is more valuable than 100 likes. Stop apologizing for your nature. This one's hard because we're trained from a young age to adapt, to please, to fit in. But the more intelligent you are, the more painful that becomes, because you know when you're betraying yourself. Let go of the idea that you should want what everyone else wants. You don't have to justify your quietness. You don't have to explain why you'd rather read a book than go out drinking. Your peace doesn't need permission. Here's something important. You're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're just tuned to a different frequency. And if you're watching this, chances are you've spent a lot of time trying to hide that, shrinking it, trying to pass as more outgoing, more approachable, more normal. But what if your strength was in your difference? What if the time you spend alone is exactly what allows you to see the world more clearly, to create, to think, to heal? The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity, and that clarity often comes from quiet people, thinking quietly. So if you're someone who chooses solitude over noise, don't see it as a sign of weakness. See it as the beginning of depth, of focus, of clarity. You're not alone in feeling different. And maybe, just maybe, that difference is a gift. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Being different is lonely, but it's also sacred. If you're the kind of person who thinks deeply, who questions everything, who feels more alive in silence than in small talk, then you're part of a rare group. The ones who sit quietly in a loud world, not because they're afraid, but because they're listening, observing, processing, becoming. And yes, that journey can feel isolating. You'll watch others bond quickly over things that don't move you. You'll wonder if you're missing out, and sometimes it will hurt. But don't mistake discomfort for disconnection. Your path is just slower, quieter, deeper. There's a kind of power that comes from knowing yourself well enough to not need the room to like you. There's clarity in choosing presence over performance, and there's beauty in building a life that doesn't look impressive on the outside, but feels real on the inside. So here's what I'll leave you with. You don't have to be the loudest voice to have something important to say. You don't have to be surrounded by people to feel connected. And you don't have to apologize for walking a quieter path, because sometimes the people who change the world aren't the ones speaking the most. They're the ones who were quiet long enough to understand it. Take your time, choose your company, protect your mind, and never forget, your difference is not your weakness, it's your strength. Treat it like one.